Hi, I'm Kylie. I write romance where love meets danger. This story starts with one perilous Christmas Eve night. If you love it, comment and we'll make the audiobook for Spotify. Merry Christmas! Subscribe for more. Let's begin. The snow fell in thick, heavy flakes outside the restaurant window, each one catching the sharp white glow of the streetlights before disappearing into the dark Chicago alley. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass, watching my breath fog the surface. Anything to distract myself from the fact that I was about to walk into the most humiliating evening of my life. A blind date on Christmas Eve at 28 years old. My best friend Maya had set this up 3 weeks ago, her eyes bright with that matchmaking fervor only people in happy relationships seem to have. "His name is Silas," she'd said, gripping my hands across the coffee shop table. "He's successful, incredibly smart, and he specifically asked about you after seeing your picture from the charity run." I should have known then that something was off. Men like that, successful, sharp, didn't need blind dates. They certainly didn't need someone like me, a respiratory therapist working double shifts at County General to pay down my student loans. Living in a one-bedroom where the radiator hissed and clanged, wearing a dress I'd owned since my senior year of college because a new winter coat had taken priority. But Maya had been so insistent, and I was so tired of spending every holiday alone. The restaurant she'd chosen was called The Rowan, tucked into a sleek, modern building in the Loop. I'd walked past it 100 times on my way to the train, never daring to look at the menu posted in the window. The kind of place where a side dish costs more than my grocery budget for 2 days. I pulled my thrifted wool coat tighter around my body, feeling the bitter wind cut through the worn fabric. My boots, black with a salt-stained toe, squeaked on the cleared pavement as I approached the entrance. Through the heavy glass doors, I could see warm light, the glimmer of silver, the soft movement of people who belonged in places like this. I didn't belong here. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. But before I could touch it, the door swung open. A man in a charcoal overcoat appeared, his face neutral, his eyes scanning the street behind me with a quick, efficient sweep. "Miss Chen?" His voice was calm, deeper than expected. I blinked. "Yes, but how?" "This way, please." He stepped aside, gesturing into the enveloping warmth. The interior of the Rowan smelled like pine boughs, expensive whiskey, and something else. Something rich and savory that made my stomach tighten with hunger and anxiety in equal measure. The man guided me past the host stand, past tables filled with couples leaning close over flickering candles, past a long bar where a fire crackled behind glass. We moved toward the back of the restaurant to a secluded alcove I hadn't even noticed from outside. A private booth with high, dark leather walls, the lighting low and intimate, feeling more like isolation than romance. My heart hammered against my ribs. "He's waiting for you," the man said, stopping before a booth nestled in the corner. Partially shielded by a decorative metal screen, I smoothed down my dress, a simple burgundy sheath that had seemed acceptable in my apartment, but now felt shabby and thin. My fingers caught on a loose thread at the sleeve. Perfect. Then I saw him. He sat with his back to the wall, a position that gave him a clear view of the entire dining room. The first thing I noticed was his suit, a black so deep it seemed to absorb the light, tailored with a severity that spoke of custom work. The second thing was his hands resting on the table. Long fingers, no jewelry except a single heavy silver ring on his right hand, edged with patterns I couldn't make out from where I stood. The third thing was his face. Maya had said handsome. She hadn't said severe. He couldn't have been older than 35. Dark hair cut close, a strong jaw that looked like it was carved from stone, a mouth that seemed set in a permanent line of assessment. But his eyes, even from several feet away, I could see they were a pale, crystalline gray, and they were fixed on me with an intensity that made the air freeze in my lungs. He didn't stand when I approached, didn't smile, just watched me with those cool eyes as I moved forward, suddenly hyper-aware of every flaw. The chip in my manicure, the faint scuff on my boot, the way my dark hair was frizzing from the snow. "Silas." My voice came out smaller than I'd intended. "Sit." Not a request, a command, delivered in a voice like gravel and smoke. I sat. The leather booth was supple, expensive, and I sank into it, feeling swallowed whole. Across from me, Silas, if that was even his real name, continued to study me with those unsettling eyes. He hadn't touched the drink in front of him, something amber in a crystal glass. "You're late," he said finally. What? No. I fumbled for my phone, but his hand moved slightly and the man in the overcoat appeared from nowhere, placing a glass of red wine in front of me. 7:15, Silas said. "I arrived at 7. My cheeks burned. "I'm sorry, I thought Maya said 7:30. He leaned back and I caught a glimpse of something at his collar, a flash of dark ink, a tattoo creeping up from beneath his crisp white shirt. She does that sometimes, doesn't she? Gets the details wrong. The way he said it made my spine straighten. "You know Maya?" "I know of Maya. Her fiancé works in private equity. We've had dealings." Something about the way he said dealings made my stomach twist, but I couldn't pinpoint why. I reached for the wine glass, needing something to do with my hands, and took a sip. It was the best wine I'd ever tasted, which wasn't saying much given my usual selection was whatever was under $15 at the corner store. "You're a respiratory therapist," Silas said, not a question. "At County General." I set the glass down, trying to steady my trembling hands. "Maya must have told you." "She did." He tilted his head slightly, the movement reminding me of a hawk sighting prey. "You work the overnight shift on Mondays and Thursdays. You take the L because your car was totaled 9 months ago, and the insurance didn't cover a replacement. You live alone on West Diversey, 3rd floor, apartment 3B. The blood drained from my face. "How do you..." "You have a small scar on your right knee from a bicycle accident when you were 14. You haven't spoken to your father in 3 years. Your mother passed when you were 20. He leaned forward and I could smell him now. Something clean and cold, sandalwood and frost. "You're drowning in student debt and you often skip lunch to make your loan payments. You're exhausted, Lena. You're so tired you can barely see straight." I should have run. Every instinct was screaming at me to get up, to leave, to get as far away from this man as possible. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, could only stare as he smiled for the first time. A slow, slight curve of his mouth that didn't reach those Arctic eyes. "How do you know all that?" I whispered. "I make it my business to know things." He signaled to someone I couldn't see. Suddenly, food appeared on our table. Dishes I hadn't ordered, hadn't even seen on a menu. Especially about people who interest me. "Why would I interest you?" His smile widened a fraction, and I saw something dangerous flash in those gray depths. "That's what we're here to find out." I should have left then, should have grabbed my coat and walked out into the snowy night and never looked back. But I was so hungry, and the food smelled incredible. And there was something about the way he looked at me, as if I were a complex equation he was determined to solve, that made me stay. Just for a moment. The man in the overcoat reappeared, leaning down to whisper something in Silas's ear. I watched his expression shift, saw something cold and lethal pass over his features before it smoothed back into neutral ice. "Excuse me," he said, standing in one fluid motion. "I need to take this. Don't leave, Lena. We're not finished." He walked away, and I noticed for the first time that there were other men in similar dark coats positioned throughout the restaurant. All of them watching our booth with the same detached efficiency. My phone buzzed in my purse, a text from Maya. "How's it going? He's intense, right? In a good way?" I stared at the message, then at the food cooling on the table, then at the men who were definitely not waitstaff. My hands shook as I reached for my coat. That's when I saw it. Silas's phone, left on the table beside his untouched drink. The screen lit up with an incoming message. Even from across the table, I could read the preview. "Asset secured. The Rossi matter is concluded. Awaiting instructions." Asset. Matter concluded. Oh God. I stood up so fast I knocked my wine glass over, red liquid spreading across the white linen like blood. One of the men in coats moved toward me, but I was already backing away, my coat clutched to my chest. "I have to go," I said to no one. "I'm not feeling well." But I'd forgotten my purse. It was still in the booth. When I turned back to grab it, I saw Silas standing at the entrance to our alcove, his phone pressed to his ear, his eyes locked on mine. He lowered the phone slowly. "Sit down, Lena." The temperature in the alcove seemed to drop 20 degrees. Every instinct screamed danger, but my legs wouldn't move. The men in dark coats had closed in subtly, not threateningly, but enough that I understood. Leaving wasn't an option. I sat. Silas returned to the booth, settling back into his seat with the effortless authority of someone used to instant compliance. He picked up his glass, took a slow sip, then set it down with precise calm. "You read my message," he stated. "I didn't mean to." "You're afraid now." He studied me, those gray eyes missing nothing. "Your pulse is racing. I can see it in your throat. You want to run." "Please," I whispered. "I don't know what this is, but I want no part of it. I'll forget everything, I swear." "You spilled wine on a $4,000 tablecloth," he interrupted, his voice still level. "That's unfortunate." $4,000. "I'll pay for it," I said desperately, though we both knew I couldn't. "I'll work it off. How?" He leaned forward, and this time I could see the ink more clearly. A geometric pattern, like a circuit board or a constellation, tracing up his neck. "You make $42,000 a year before taxes. After rent, utilities, loan payments, you have perhaps $150 left each month. How, exactly, would you pay me back, Lena?" Tears burned behind my eyes. "What do you want from me?" He was quiet for a long moment, his gaze never leaving my face. Then that small, terrifying smile returned. "I want you to have dinner with me," he said simply. "Is that so unreasonable?" "Yes," I wanted to scream. "Everything about this is unreasonable." But what I said was, "Okay," because I was trapped, and we both knew it. Silas gestured to the food. "Eat, Lena. You're going to need your strength." I forced myself to pick up the fork, though my hand trembled so badly I nearly dropped it. The food in front of me, some kind of beautifully seared fish with delicate vegetables, smelled divine, but my stomach was a knot of terror. Silas watched me take the first bite, his eyes tracking the movement like a scientist observing a specimen. I chewed mechanically, tasting nothing. "Better," he murmured. "You're too thin. When was the last time you had a proper meal?" The absurdity almost made me laugh. "I eat." "Instant oatmeal at your clinic desk doesn't count." He cut into his own food. "You'll eat 3 meals a day from now on. I'll have it arranged." "I'll have what?" The fork clattered against my plate. "You can't just—" "I can." He took a bite, chewed, swallowed, all while holding my gaze. "I do what I want, Lena. The sooner you understand that, the easier this will be." "Easier?" My voice cracked. "What is this? Why am I here? Why did you—" I gestured helplessly at the table, at him. "Maya said this was a blind date, but you already knew everything about me. You've been watching me." "Yes." The casual admission hit me like a physical blow. "That's insane. That's stalking." "Call it what you want." He set down his silverware, giving me his full attention. 4 months ago, you were leaving the hospital after a double shift. It was pouring. You gave your raincoat to an elderly man waiting for a bus, then walked 4 blocks to the train in your scrubs. You were shivering. I remembered that night, remembered the man's grateful nod. 2 months ago, he continued, you spent your only day off that month volunteering at the animal shelter on Clark Street. You bought bags of food with your own money, even though you needed new shoes. Last month, you covered a coworker's holiday shift so she could be with her sick son, even though you were already exhausted. Each word felt like he was stripping me bare, exposing parts of myself I'd never meant for anyone to see. How do you know all this? I told you. I make it my business to know. He leaned back. You're a good person, Lena. Genuinely good. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How valuable? I'm not. I shook my head, trying to process. People help people. That's normal. No. His voice hardened. People look out for themselves. They take what they can. But you, he tilted his head, studying me, you give pieces of yourself away until there's nothing left. You struggle and sacrifice, and you do it quietly because you think that's what you're supposed to do. Tears blurred my vision. I blinked them back furiously. You don't know me. I know you better than anyone in your life. He said it with such absolute certainty I couldn't argue. I know you're drowning and too proud to ask for a life preserver. I know you're exhausted and alone. And I know that tonight you came here hoping maybe, just maybe, someone might finally see you." The tears spilled over then, hot tracks down my cold cheeks. I swiped at them angrily. "What do you want from me?" Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached across the table and caught my wrist, not roughly, but firmly enough that I couldn't pull away. His thumb pressed against my pulse point, and I knew he could feel my frantic heartbeat. "I want to take care of you," he said softly. "I want to make sure you never skip another meal, never work yourself into the ground, never have to choose between a train pass and fixing your glasses. I want to give you everything you've been denying yourself." It sounded like a dream, a fairy tale, a beautifully baited trap. "Why?" I whispered. His grip tightened fractionally. "Because you're mine now." The words should have terrified me. They did. But underneath the fear was something else, something traitorous and warm that whispered, "Someone sees you. Someone wants you." "I'm not." I tried to pull my hand back, but he held firm. "You can't just decide that. I'm not a thing you can own." "No," he agreed. "You're much more valuable than a thing." He released my wrist, but the brand of his touch lingered. "Finish your dinner, then we'll discuss the terms." Terms? My voice was barely audible. I should have run, should have screamed, but my body moved without permission, picking up the fork again. I ate because he told me to, and some broken part of me didn't know how to refuse. When my plate was empty, he signaled, and one of his men appeared with a leather folder. Silas opened it, extracted a check, and slid it across the table. It was made out to me for $50,000. I stared, unable to process the number of zeros. "What is this?" "Consider it in advance." He said it like 50,000 was a minor detail. "That will clear your student loans and leave enough for you to get proper winter clothes and groceries. Tomorrow, a car will be delivered to your building, something reliable. Your schedule at the clinic will be adjusted to 3-day shifts per week." "I can't accept this." "You can. You will." He pulled out another document, several pages long. "This is a contract. It outlines our arrangement. You'll read it, sign it, and then you'll come home with me tonight." The room tilted. "Home with you? No, absolutely not." "Yes." No room for argument in that single icy word. "You're not going back to that apartment, Lena. It's not safe." Not safe from what? But I already knew the answer. Not safe from him, from whatever world he operated in. "From people who might want to hurt you to get to me," he said it matter-of-factly. "The moment you walked in here tonight, you became associated with me. That makes you a potential target." "Then let me leave," I begged. "Let me walk away. I'll forget all of this." Too late. His eyes turned glacial. "You think I'd let you go now, after I've finally found you?" He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "You have two choices. Come with me willingly, or come with me unwillingly. Either way, you're coming." The men in coats closed in. My purse and coat appeared on the table. Silas held out his hand, waiting. I looked at that hand, at the silver ring, at the power it represented. Then at the check, the contract, the exit now subtly blocked. I'd come here tonight hoping for connection. I'd gotten my wish in the most terrifying way possible. Slowly, hating myself, I reached out and placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and unyielding. He pulled me to my feet, and I stumbled against him, close enough to feel the heat of his body, to smell that clean, cold scent of sandalwood and winter. "Good," he murmured near my ear, and I hated the traitorous flutter in my chest. He kept hold of my hand as we walked through the restaurant, past curious glances, past the host who looked away quickly. Outside, the snow was falling harder, blanketing the city in silent white. A black SUV with dark-tinted windows waited at the curb, engine running. One of the men opened the back door. Silas gestured for me to get in. I hesitated on the threshold, one foot on the salted curb, one foot poised over the plush interior. This was my last chance to run, to scream. But to where? Back to my cold apartment, my crushing debt, my life of quiet desperation? At least this cage, however terrifying, came with warmth. I climbed in. Silas slid in beside me, his presence immediately filling the space. The door closed with a solid final thunk. The driver, another man in a dark coat, pulled smoothly into the sparse holiday traffic. "Where are we going?" My voice sounded distant. "My residence." Silas's hand found mine again in the darkened interior, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "Don't worry, you'll be comfortable there." Comfortable. As if that was the concern. We drove through familiar streets, then into a neighborhood of converted loft buildings and modern high-rises along the river. The SUV pulled under the canopy of a sleek glass tower. A doorman in a long coat rushed forward, his eyes widening slightly at the sight of Silas before he composed himself. "Mr. Thorne," he said, his voice deferential. Thorne. So Silas wasn't his first name. We crossed a lobby of polished concrete and steel, illuminated by a massive, abstract chandelier. The elevator was mirrored, and I caught our reflection, him, all sharp edges and controlled power. Me, small, pale, swallowed by the green dress, looking like a lost child. The elevator rose silently to the top floor, marked PH. The doors opened directly into an apartment. No, a penthouse. The entire space was a study in monochrome and minimalism. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking, dizzying view of the snow-dusted city and the dark expanse of Lake Michigan. It smelled of leather, clean linen, and that faint sandalwood scent. "Welcome home, Lena," Silas said, and the words settled over me like a sentence.